Welcome to the Surviving to Thriving podcast, where we're dedicated to helping you break free from chronic inflammation and get your life back. I'm Dr. Rachel Yeager, naturopathic doctor and medical intuitive, and the founder of the Surviving to Thriving method of chronic illness recovery. Join me as we uncover strategies for overcoming health challenges and restoring your physical, mental, emotional, and soul health. Together, let's embark on a journey to thriving. Hello, I hope everyone's having a great day. So today I am going to dive into a topic that so many of you have been asking about, long COVID. If you've had COVID and you're still not feeling like yourself months later, you're not alone at all. You might be dealing with exhaustion, brain fog, weird symptoms that don't seem to have a clear cause. Heart palpitations is a big one of those. And yet, when you go to the doctor, they probably run some labs and say everything looks normal. Does this sound familiar? You know your body better than anyone. And if something feels off, it probably is. Long COVID is a very real. So today we're going to talk about what's actually going on in the body that's causing it, why some people get it while others don't, and most importantly, what you can do to start feeling better that will address the root cause of it. So grab a cup of tea, get comfy, and let's dive in. So what is long COVID? Let's start with the basics here. So the CDC defines long COVID as symptoms that last more than 4 weeks after a COVID infection. But in reality, I see people who are struggling 6 months, a year, even longer. It can really persist quite a long time because partly the root causes can be multifactorial, which we'll talk about. And the frustrating part is that a lot of doctors don't really know what to do with it yet. I've had so many patients and clients tell me that their doctors brushed off their symptoms, chalked it up to anxiety, or just told them to give it time. Others straight up told them that they did believe them, but they also didn't know what to do about it. And long COVID is absolutely not just in your head, it's a real condition, and it affects multiple symptoms and multiple systems in the body. Your immune system, nervous system, mitochondria, gut, even your hormones are all affected by long COVID. And because of that, it can show up in so many different ways. So let's review the most common symptoms of long COVID. Some people have long COVID, and I just don't think they realize it because they're not recognizing these symptoms. So here's what it actually feels like. The symptoms vary a lot, but here's some of the most common ones. Extreme fatigue. This is I need to lie down after taking a shower level fatigue. Brain fog. This looks like forgetting words, forgetting why you walked into a room, struggling to concentrate, struggling with word finding. You just can think of, you picture it, think of a thing, but you cannot come up with the word for it. Forgetting people's names, feeling like your brain is running just on dial-up. Heart palpitations, that weird, fluttery, racy heartbeat that makes no sense. Or you might be noticing your heart racing, just going for a stroll or even just sitting on the couch not moving. Your heart rate seems faster than it should be. Sleep disturbances. Either you can't fall asleep, or you wake up feeling unrested, or you're waking up a lot during the middle of the night. Joint and muscle pain. So this would be feeling sore all over for no clear reason. This can also look like taking longer to recover after exercise or suddenly having delayed onset muscle soreness after exercise that you didn't have before. Digestive issues, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, or just an overall unhappy gut. Anxiety and depression, because when your nervous system is out of whack, your mood takes a hit too. And some of the immune stimulating properties of COVID quite literally put your body into an anxiety and depression state because the histamine and the other factors involved directly cause anxiety. Dizziness and lightheadedness, so feeling like you might pass out when you stand up, headaches and migraines. This is a pressure in your head that just won't quit, getting a lot more headaches or worse headaches than you used to. Loss of taste or smell. Some people do lose these senses for months or they feel like they have never fully come back. And it is possible, in my opinion, to recover all of your other long COVID symptoms and potentially ongoing, just never fully 100% regain your taste or smell. I have seen people lose this from other viruses and never fully get it back. But most people are getting their full taste and smell back after COVID. Shortness of breath, even though your lungs should be fine, you're just feeling like you can't quite catch your breath or you can't take such a deep breath. So, not being able to take a super deep breath, we call air hunger. That would be a symptom of long COVID as well. And lastly, chest pain or tightness. That weird discomfort that makes you feel like you should go get checked out, but everything looks normal. So if you're dealing with some or all of these, just know that you're not imagining it. There is a reason your body is struggling, and there are things you can do to start healing. So, why does long COVID happen? Why do some people recover from COVID just fine, while others are left feeling wrecked for months or longer? There are a few big factors at play here. Number one, chronic inflammation. Your immune system stays in attack mode long after the virus is gone. Number two, mitochondrial dysfunction. Your body's energy factories aren't producing energy like they should. The mitochondria literally get damaged from the COVID inflammation, and the whole cell actually can get damaged from COVID inflammation. Mitochondria are just the little energy factories that are inside the cell. And if the mitochondrial membrane or the mitochondria themselves get damaged, then they're not going to be making energy. Another thing to think about is when we're fighting inflammation, we're using up a lot of nutrients. Our mitochondria rely on nutrients to actually function and do their processes. So that can be a part of the mitochondrial dysfunction picture too. Nervous system dysregulation. Your fight or flight response can get stuck in overdrive, which affects everything from your heart rate to digestion. Your nervous system appropriately went into fight or flight because your immune system detected a threat, the COVID virus. So your brain naturally goes into fight or flight when your immune system knows a threat is present. This is subconscious. So even if you don't know that something's off in your body consciously, your subconscious body does because your immune system is signaling to make a ton of warrior cells to go fight something. Your immune system's on high alert. Your subconscious brain is tied into your immune system. So you did go appropriately into fight or flight. But if you stay stuck in a fight or flight response, when we're in fight or flight and we're not in our rest and heal and digest state, and fight or flight, our hormones actually shut down, our immune system turns off, our cells stop repairing themselves, we're not going to get good sleep, and on. The fourth big root cause behind long COVID is viral persistence. So we now have enough research. It's been enough time. We know that there are likely leftover viral fragments that keep triggering the immune system. This can happen whether you got COVID naturally or whether you got the COVID vaccine. Regardless, you'd have spike protein fragments in your system, and that can keep triggering the immune system over and over again. So we'll talk about breaking down the spike protein here in a little bit for gut imbalances. So COVID can directly disrupt your microbiome. We know that the microbiome impacts immunity, digestion, and even mood. So if we're having inflammation throughout the whole body, and we know that COVID causes systemic inflammation, naturally our gut is going to be inflamed too. If our gut is inflamed, we open ourselves up to getting all different types of gut disorders and things down the line. We can actually get SIBO, which is small intestinal bowel overgrowth, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, just because our intestine isn't able to keep up with its proper immune system and fight off all the things that are constantly happening. We're constantly having our bully bacteria trying to be opportunistic and overgrow, but our healthy gut keeps that at bay. Once we have inflammation in the picture, then it's hard for our gut to keep up, and we can actually end up with things like SIBO just as a result of our gut being down for some amount of time. Reactivated infections would be the sixth cause, and this one's really often overlooked. So Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, those are the monoviruses, even Lyme disease, even mycoplasma, those could have been lurking around in your system and they flared up after COVID. So a lot of times people think that their long COVID symptoms are purely from COVID. I would say over 90% of the time, that's not the case. 90% of the symptoms I see happening with long COVID are not because the virus is hanging around. but because the mask fell away or different things that were behind the scenes came to light. Blood clotting issues. This is also totally overlooked. This is not being looked at all, especially earlier strains of COVID. They increased blood thickening, which can contribute to post COVID symptoms. If we have thick blood, then we are not getting adequate oxygen perfusion. So we're not getting enough oxygen delivered to our muscles, throughout our whole body, to our brain. This can contribute to brain fog. This also can cause a lot of myalgia or muscle soreness, and it can cause joint pain too. It can even contribute to shortness of breath because we're not getting the oxygenated blood that we need delivered. And then hormonal dysregulation. I see this one missed majority of the time. COVID can actually impact insulin sensitivity. So it can cause weight gain and weight loss resistance. Um, COVID can increase cortisol levels and cause other cortisol dysfunction. Cortisol is our stress energy hormone. I call it the Goldilocks hormone because it has to be just right. If it is high or low, we have symptoms. COVID can also throw off sex hormones, leading to fatigue, weight gain, mood swings. A lot of women have noticed changes in their cycle after COVID or after the COVID vaccine. So these are just some of the hormones that can be dysregulated. The inflammation from COVID can also impact the thyroid. Most commonly, we are going to see an autoimmune thyroid picture when that happens. And so usually we're going to end up with low thyroid hormone. So this isn't just in your head. It's a very real physiological condition. And because there are so many root causes, these 8 root causes: chronic inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, nervous system dysregulation, viral persistence, gut imbalance, reactivated infections, blood clotting issues, and hormonal dysregulation. Because there's these 8 different root causes, we need a multi-layered approach to healing. So, how do we start healing from long COVID? That is the $1 million question. I cannot tell you how many people I've helped make a full recovery from long COVID because we actually looked at the root causes and we knew what is going on biochemistry wise and root cause wise, what's going on a cellular level with each of these root causes. So we can actually choose things that help to address each of these root causes. So, what can you actually do to start feeling better? Number one, we can support your body's antioxidant defenses. So, most notably, COVID depletes glutathione, which is one of your body's most powerful antioxidants. Antioxidants protect our cells from inflammation. They keep our cells functioning the way they should. They help our liver detox the way it's supposed to. They protect our tissue from damage so it functions like it's supposed to. Our lungs are some of the most glutathione rich organs in our body. And so, glutathione, if it gets depleted in our lungs by COVID, we now open up our lungs to inflammation and damage. So, we don't have glutathione protecting our lung cells. So, rebuilding these stores of glutathione is crucial. Fortunately, it's always an option to take glutathione supplements. We can do oral glutathione. There's also nebulized glutathione that can actually be inhaled. Eating sulfur rich foods like garlic, onions, and cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli can also help replete and build up those glutathione stores. Reducing exposure to toxins that deplete glutathione. So, alcohol, processed foods, pesticides, there's a lot of things out there that deplete our natural glutathione stores. As always, everything we're going to go through today, check in with your doctor first before you would start anything new. Number 2, helping your body clear the spike protein. This has to be done carefully because the enzymes that we use to dissolve and break down the spike protein can actually soften the cervix, so they're not safe to be used anywhere near pregnancy, and they can actually thin the blood. So, especially if someone is taking a blood thinner, these would be off the table. The spike protein from COVID and possibly from vaccines too might contribute to the lingering symptoms because the immune system still recognizes the protein as a problem and is continuously attacking it. And you can't tell your immune system to just turn off an attack. So, some natural strategies would be nattokinase and bromelain. These are proteolytic enzymes that help break down the spike protein, and they also support circulation. A natural way to do this instead of taking supplements is fasting. So, anytime you fast, if you fast long enough, so for women, 12 plus hours, for men, sometimes we've got to go 14 or 16 plus hours. If you're fasting, then you're going into autophagy, which is like Pac Man. Your immune cells turn into little Pac Men and they're going around eating up all the stuff that's not supposed to be there, including the COVID viral protein. They're able to do that while you're fasting because we don't realize how much of an energy drain and a resource drain it is to digest and process our food. Think of it. You are inputting something like a hamburger. Your body is literally extracting everything it needs from that. And then it's excreting the rest as waste. That takes so much energy. So if we give our body a break so that it can put resources toward other things, that's when we really get to see autophagy. Our body's, oh, finally, I don't need to be doing this super energy consuming activity. I can go through and do a garbage sweep that I've been wanting to do because I have a break now. So the autophagy that happens with fasting encourages your body to clean up old damaged cells, and it can clean out things like the spike protein. Number 3, balancing the nervous system. So a dysregulated nervous system is why so many long COVID patients feel wired and tired at the same time, or anxious and tired at the same time. So for some people, breath work and vagus nerve exercises can be helpful. For other people, breath work really brings to light that your body is in a fight or flight sympathetic state, and focusing on something like your breath can actually cause more anxiety, which is a more normal response than is talked about. Breath work is not the entry point for everyone. There's so much other stuff we can do to regulate the nervous system. And a lot of people will look to brain rewiring programs. Most of the programs that are out there are telling you to tell your body that everything's fine, but maybe everything's not fine if your body is still having a long COVID response. There's still something going on physically. So I'm a really big fan of doing an even though approach. Even though we're still healing and our immune system is recognizing very real threats and inflammation and symptoms and problems going on post COVID, how can we still start to help shift out of fight or flight into rest, heal, and digest so our body can get our hormones back online, get our immune system back online, get our cells healing again, be absorbing the nutrients from our food that we need to heal. Because we can do both at the same time. We don't tell our body everything's fine. We tell our body we see the problems. We've recognized the root causes so our body can breathe a sigh of relief that we're actually taking care of it appropriately. And even while that's happening and we're still healing, we're going to use very specific strategies to help our body shift down. I'm really passionate about guiding people through that because with my long COVID, with my autoimmune stuff and my other chronic illnesses, that's been such a huge part of my healing recovery journey is regulating my nervous system from an even though state and not just what some people call gaslighting the body by saying everything's fine. And that's how we're going to try to calm down is just saying everything's fine. Another way to help a dysregulated nervous system is to do gentle movement like stretching or walking. And then I love to help bring in adaptogens like ashwagandha and rhodiola are really popular ones. We have so many other cortisol regulating things that can help balance the nervous system. We can actually do things to lower nervous system inflammation. I think we forget that our brain is just an organ in our body. So if our gut can get inflamed, our brain can get inflamed too. So we can actually lower nervous system inflammation by doing things that actually reduce inflammation in the brain. Number 4, healing your gut. So gut health impacts everything. So supporting it is a must. Some people can feel a lot better with eating fermented foods and probiotics, prebiotic fiber. Other people, those bully bacteria overgrew in the gut. Everything you feed them that's supposed to be feeding your bacteria, the bully bacteria are getting to it first and eating it up, and they are fermenting it in your gut, which creates a lot of bloating and gas and indigestion and discomfort. So this is where it's really important to work with someone who understands what's going on a root cause level because If you just go at this with a general gut healing approach, that can actually really backfire. Using digestive enzymes can really help with nutrient absorption, especially if we're in a fight or flight state. When we're in fight or flight, our body's not making the stomach acid and secreting the digestive enzymes that are needed to actually break down our food so that we can absorb our nutrients. So, healing the gut is really important. A lot of people who come to me have gone and done a GI map or something with someone who just focuses on the gut. And they've done a lot of restrictive diet changes because if you're just looking at the gut, a lot of times diet is the only tool that's being used. And restriction actually is pretty unhelpful in the general scheme of things. It's only helpful, in my opinion, to cut out foods that are actually inflammatory and that your body is actually reacting to. If we try to get too restricted with the gut, long COVID is a high histamine picture for many people. So if you start cutting out histamine rich foods, your body's just going to start reacting to the next tier of histamine rich foods and then the next tier once you cut the second tier out. So you have to be really careful. So I definitely caution against any kind of restriction unless there's a really good reason for it. Number 5 is managing inflammation with diet and lifestyle. So I absolutely love the research that's out there on the blocking the NF kappa beta pathways and activating the NRF2 pathways. There's some really cool stuff out there. A training I did with Dr. Horowitz and Neil Nathan right after long COVID, they actually talked through these, and I've been using this ever since then. It's been a game changer. So, blocking the NF kappa beta pathways, this increases inflammation, this pathway. We know that we can block it with things like curcumin and omega 3s. We can activate the NRF2 anti inflammatory pathway, which helps reduce oxidative stress. And we know that this helps with recovery from COVID. We can do that with things like sulforaphane and broccoli sprouts. And there's a lot of other supplements and herbal supports like quercetin and resveratrol that can come into this as well. So, overall, I just want to point out that there are so many things that can be done to heal from long COVID. And at the same time, when it comes to long COVID, because there are so many root causes, you could throw the kitchen sink at it. You would be taking 50 plus supplements if we were trying to do all of these things. Some people do great with that. Most people need to know that they're doing something that's specific to them so that the brain can go into the rest and heal state, can transition out of that fight or flight state. When we know that we're following a proven path and we're doing an approach that is really targeted and specific and a known approach that will work, our brain can actually calm down. We can take a breath and then our body can shift into rest and heal. And then our brain can really help our physical healing go the rest of the way. If you've been struggling with long COVID, I just want you to know that you can heal. It might take time, it might take a multi pronged approach, but your body wants to recover. And all of these symptoms that are happening in your body, it's your body trying to help you survive. It's doing its best, it's doing what it knows. It doesn't mean that your body doesn't need some support. I think that personally, if we can do anything to help support our body, then if we work in tandem with our body, that's when our body actually is able to do stuff and is able to align and follow its own natural healing instincts. Just because our body has an innate ability to heal doesn't mean that it can magically do that if it doesn't have the resources and the nutrients and a couple of things balanced so that it can actually do its job. With my long COVID, I had a really racing heart. I got POT symptoms. I would have dizziness and shortness of breath whenever I'd stand up, had really severe brain fog, had severe insomnia. I definitely was fatigued all the time. And the anxiety and the depression was huge because the brain inflammation was huge. So it's taken me quite a few months to fully come back after long COVID. And that's because there were multiple root causes that I had to address, pretty much every single one of the ones that we just went through. And so the recovery time usually depends on how many of these root causes are involved. A lot of people like to jump to testing to try to find this, and there is definitely a time and place for testing, especially when it comes to things like blood clotting. That's one that's great to test. The rest of these, we can actually ask really targeted symptom questions and figure out which ones are going on. We don't need to do thousands of dollars in testing to start healing from long COVID. We don't even need thousands of dollars in supplements to start healing from long COVID. We can just do a really in depth look at your specific health picture and ask a ton of the right symptom questions. We can pretty much pinpoint what are all the areas that are going to be involved in a successful approach. So, my advice is start small. If you're going to do stuff on your own, obviously consult with your doctor first, but pick one area. Maybe it's an anti inflammatory food you can bring in. Maybe it's nervous system work and build from there. And if you feel stuck, working with a naturopathic practitioner that can really help you get to the root of what's going on. I definitely love to work with people who have long COVID just because I know what it feels like. I know how awful it is. And I also know that people aren't really getting the right kind of help elsewhere. And there is a lot that we can do for long COVID. All right, that is it for today. So until next time, be gentle with yourself, keep moving forward, and everything that we do for our body, we want to do it from a supportive and nourishing lens. We're choosing to do this thing not out of fear of what happens if we don't do it, but we're doing it to nourish and support our body. And so we welcome the support that we're bringing inward. I hope that helps. I'll see everyone next time. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Surviving to Thriving podcast. I hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to support your journey towards better health and happiness. Remember, each health journey is unique. This podcast is not medical advice, and it's essential to consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes. If you'd like to schedule a complimentary consultation with me, I would love to talk with you. Please go to drrachelyager.com/schedule.